You're listening to Unmuted with Papamutes. You're listening to a Papamutes Unmuted podcast.
Welcome to Papamutes, everybody. My guest today is Laura Cayouette. She's an actress, a writer, a model, producer, director, and author. She's appeared in movies such as Django Unchained, Enemy of the State, and Kill Bill Volume 2. TV shows such as Friends, True Detective, House of Cards, and Queen Sugar. It's an absolute pleasure. Laura, welcome to Papamutes.
Well, hello. I'm happy to be here.
Now, you were born in D.C., grew up in Maryland, not far from where I am right now. How big an influence were your parents on your career, if any?
I would have to say none. Other than my father and mother are both very creative Renaissance people in their nature. They don't always get to express that or do anything with it, but in their nature, they are always that way. And my mother chose to have a career where she didn't get a weekly check. My grandfather, her father, also chose a career where he did not get a weekly check. And so I think that in some ways prepared me for the idea of not getting a weekly check.
Boom, perfect for acting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I actually have an uncle who's more in the, I mean, look, I'm entertainment field is nobody else in my family's in that, but my uncle is a fashion designer. He's retired now, but he, that's a career that not only do you not have the weekly paycheck, but it's that thing of you putting yourself out there and they're buying your ideas or they're not. And so it's a reflection of you when it doesn't go well. And, that whole thing, the ego ride that goes with rejection and failure for daily diet of feedback, that was modeled for me by my uncle.
Okay. Now, your book, No Small Parts, for people listening, it's KNOW, No Small Parts, an actor's guide to turning minutes into moments and moments into a career. I read it.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's excellent. It's excellent. Turning minutes into moments and moments into a career, what do you mean by that for people that are, up and coming actors?
Well, where I really learned that was actually my very first acting gig. Richard Dreyfuss wrote the foreword for that book, and he had given me some very good advice that helped me get my first job. And when I was doing that job, my very first movie was the sequel to Terms of Endearment, and I was working with Shirley MacLaine and Juliette Lewis, and a cast of thousands. Mm-hmm. And I watched Shirley MacLaine. I had a bunch of scenes that got cut, but the one that's still in the movie is the one that I'm talking about. So you can still witness this for yourself.
Okay.
She had, in that scene, she had no lines. All she had to do was sit in the studio audience and be part of a studio audience while her granddaughter, Juliette Lewis, records a television sitcom that she's acting in. So I'm the co-star. I'm Juliette Lewis's co-star, and I'm playing her best friend in this TV show. And there was a whole scene that's supposed to happen. And then at the very end, you cut to Shirley MacLaine in the studio audience clapping for her grandchild. That's it. That's that whole scene. So there are me, Juliette Lewis, Mary Gross, John Perry, we're all up there acting our buns off. And then the scene in the TV show ends and you go to Shirley MacLaine clapping. And I noticed that she had like a story, like she was making a moment. And take after take after take, nobody roped her in. So she kept elaborating on the story. By the time we finished filming that scene, it was very clear to me that she had stolen the scene right out from all four of us.
Wow.
And sure enough, when you go see the movie, it's sad because this is my only scene that's left, and I am there dressed. It's Halloween, and I'm dressed as the Good Witch Glinda, and Juliette Lewis is an angel. And I say bye, and then we leave, or go to leave, and oh no, it cuts before that. So yeah, Juliette says her line, and we go to Shirley, who is now, it's like this whole opera. And still no lines. She has not given herself one line, but she is just, she's telling a way more interesting story about her pride and her joy and her love and her than anything that was happening on stage with us. And so that's what you see in the movie. That's what I mean by taking a minute and turning it into a moment. And I learned that my very first job watching one of the greatest actors who ever has graced our screen.
Great story. Now, just for a reality check for young actors, how many times approximately have you auditioned and did not get the part? Are we talking hundreds, thousands? I mean,
well, so the answer is almost all of them. Almost all of your auditions you don't get. Like, no, that's just general basic math. Almost every audition you do, you don't get it. So it's like playing Powerball. It's like
you had to say that, right?
Yeah. Well,
I had to play it.
Say the lottery, but everybody's on to Powerball right now. But yeah, it's like buying tickets to the lottery. You don't buy them because they're all winners. You buy them because mathematically you're never going to win unless you buy one, right? You have a 0 chance of getting the part if you don't audition. And then if you buy, I don't know, say 1,000 of them, you still have almost no chance of getting it.
It's disheartening.
So it's that kind of math. I have a chapter in my book, or chapter called the lesson of the 100 auditions. And that is no joke. That is true story. So, it took me over 100 auditions to get my first commercial, or nationwide commercial. I had done a regional before I even moved to LA. But yeah, it took me over 100 auditions. And I mean, you have to start recontextualizing failure. You have to start rethinking, strategy. You have to start thinking, how is my ego going to survive a career of this? How am I going to stay energized when this is the norm?
Makes sense.
And I work all the time. My friends would love to have as little rejection as I have.
Now, this question actually is down the list, but I'm going to bring it up now. In the book, you talk about, I think the statement is 1% of actors are doing it or making a living.
Less than 1% of the actors.
That's so hard to believe. Making a living.
Less than 1% in the union.
In the union, okay, but still.
Less than 1% in the union. So that really is like, we're talking, we're getting down to teeny tiny numbers.
So you mean actors that are not doing anything on the side? That's all they do is act. Does that include?
I mean, people who are able to pay to get our health insurance, and people who are able to pay their bills, and people for whom this is their living.
Now, does that include, when people think of actors and actresses, in film, are we talking about the people on Broadway also? Like that are acting on stage?
They have a different union than we do.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't have any information on Broadway.
Okay.
Because it's a different union.
Okay.
My union covers film and television.
Okay.